we get a great opportunity each and every month to catch up with one of our U.S. senators representing the state of North Carolina, and we'll continue that trend this morning as we welcome U.S. Senator Ted Budd back to our airwaves this morning. Senator Budd, sir, good morning to you. Hope all is well. I've got a really concerning article this morning. It's over at the Washington Examiner, and it's recounting some of the just atrocities that are taking place down on the U.S.-Mexico border. They're reporting this morning that over 1.9 million people have illegally entered the country just in Texas in this fiscal year. Is it really that bad down there?
It is that bad. It is a national security crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's an economic crisis. And I lay this at the Biden administration's feet. We were making great progress on this under Trump. I've been down there multiple times. I've talked to the border agents, and those men and women working 24/7, doing everything they can. Here's what they told me. They said, yeah, we need a wall, but what we really need is policy, and we don't have that under this administration. I'm as frustrated as anyone. We know how to fix this, but we got to get the right administration in place that believes that it's an actual problem. Mayorkas has completely screwed this up. Their worldview is completely flawed here in how they're even looking at this. One of the things in fiscal year 2023, again, that ended in September 30th, we've already seen 160 individuals on the terrorist watch list caught at the border. And these aren't people just from Mexico or Central and South America. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of them. These are people from China, Iran, other parts of the Middle East. Who knows? Are we going to have lone wolves coming through? Or we have those from terrorist cells that are beginning to assemble? And it's been a gaping hole by the Biden administration for the past 2 years. A total, now you mentioned a big number, 1.8, 1.9 million just this year through Texas, but in the last 2 years, there's been 8 million illegal border crossings. That's like the state of Kentucky. I mean, it's the most in U.S. history.
You know, you don't want to fearmonger when you talk about this stuff, Senator Budd, but we're getting data now, of course, not provided by Customs and Border Protection. A news agency by the name of the Center Square was able to get an anonymous source in CBP to provide this data in the fiscal year, which you noted ended in September. There were at least, just in the state of Texas, over 450,000 gotaways. It seems unconscionable to me that there's not a few people in there that would love to commit mass atrocities and mass harms here on U.S. soil.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's just the law of numbers. And when you get 160, and these are just the ones that they've been caught at the border. They're not even talking about the ones that have got away that you referred to. And those should be public numbers. You shouldn't have to have some sort of secret source. They should be very forthcoming with these numbers. And unfortunately, the news is so bad, they started to obscure some of them. The fentanyl that's coming through, the overdose deaths that are now the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45 years old, about 105,000 from last year, all heartbreaking stories, families that have been devastated, law enforcement that's been overrun by it. And again, I mean, how bad does it have to get before people are just completely fed up with what the Biden administration is doing and not doing here?
You mentioned the media attention to this. It is so shocking to me. I mean, maybe I shouldn't even say that, Senator, but maybe I'm not shocked. It's amazing to me how little media coverage there has been from anybody about this outside of Bill Malugin down at the border for Fox and a couple of other media outlets. It's like it's not even happening.
Oh, no, it's just like a veil over their eyes. The left doesn't want to hear it. They don't believe it, or they believe in open borders, and this is a means to an end for some destruction of the distinctions of America that have made us great for 247 years. It's heartbreaking, and 2024 can't get here fast enough. And then let's have some great results. Hopefully, we get President Trump back in, and we can win this, and we can begin to fix this. And look, I think he'll move faster than he did even the first time and get it done even quicker. And we can get on the road to recovery here, because this is absolutely a train wreck. U.S.
Senator Ted Budd joins us here this morning on Wilmington's Morning News. For you talk about 2024, obviously you're not up for re-election, but how do Republicans message this border issue? I would assume, and you know what they say about assumptions, but I would assume that if the vast majority of the American public that is not following the news day in and day out, that is not listening to talk radio, that's not reading or watching Fox News or some of these other outlets, if they truly knew what was going on down there, I think they'd be outraged. How do Republicans message that?
Well, it's going to depend on who they're talking to. And, you know, it may not be the most popular Thanksgiving dinner discussion, but I think it needs to come up in certain circles. You know, we've got not everybody in my extended family is as conservative as I am. But, you know, and people tend to look the other way. They live in these insulated circles, and that's just not reality. There are moms whose kids aren't coming home because of the border crisis. There's law enforcement whose partners aren't coming back because of what happens at the border and how it's affected all 50 states. And it affects all 100 counties here in North Carolina, you know, from as far west all the way to where you are in Wilmington area. So you've got to talk about the heartbreaking stories. And it's unfortunately, Nick, it's easier to talk about because we all can reach 1 degree away and we can name a name of somebody from our church who is affected by it, whether it's a break-in from an illegal or it was a drug overdose that tragically affected a family that touches us or someone in our own family. So I would say know those stories, tie it to the border. And you don't have to fabricate anything. This is reality here. And share that because sometimes these people that look the other way, they only deal in emotion, and the emotion hasn't touched them yet. But you need to bring it home.
Yeah, no question about that. U.S. Senator Ted Budd joins us here this morning. I'm sure you've seen the growing trend of groups on the Democrat side of the aisle that are now speaking out against Israel, masquerading themselves as pro-Palestinian supporters, attacking people in city streets, killing a guy out in San Francisco last weekend. Even here in North Carolina, up in Durham, you had a plethora of Starbucks locations ransacked this weekend by these protesters. What do you make of all this?
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just the reformatting of every weird leftist socialist movement, and they've now attached themselves to Hamas, which they have killed over 1,400 children, women, men. 33 Americans were killed. This is about good versus evil. And so one of the things that, you know, on the dark underbelly here, but the bright side is now we can see evil above the surface. We know where the fight is. We know where the fools are. And, we know where to fight. And a lot of it gets, I think it's intentionally. You can't destroy America economically. You can't destroy it militarily. So you got to eat us alive from within. That's really started on our university campuses in a lot of ways. Not all of them. Most of them out there are good. But there's enough really bad ideas that start there. If it's socialism, communism, Marxism, you know, it's part of the long 100-year march that the Soviets realized that they would need to destroy us. And now we're seeing the fruits of it. And I tell you what, if you're a parent and you've got kids in school, you listen to their ideas and make sure that you're not funding the continuation of this. So parents, donors, you got to be sensitive about where you go to church, where you worship, what are they supporting, and what's being said on our university campuses. Your dollars don't have to support it. And unfortunately, a lot of parents are unaware when they've supported this kind of nonsense around our country.
I'm just so surprised with the reaction to all of this. And again, we've mentioned this over the last couple of weeks. You know, you can have a conversation about how much are we funding Israel and is that too much and all of that. That's all fine and dandy. But when you've got groups, predominantly younger individuals that don't have any common sense or any idea of what's going on in the world, holding up signs, Senator Ted Budd, that say LGBTQ for Palestine or queers for Palestine, they don't really have any clue what goes on overseas, do they?
Well, perhaps they should go over there and visit and see how it goes. Even there's a satire channel in Israel, and I think you could probably find it on YouTube unless it's been censored. But it talks about how they support all the LGBTQ extension stuff and how they support Palestine, and how they're saying, yeah, please come over here. We'll throw you off of a roof. So I mean, this is a tolerant nation. That's not a tolerant nation. So you want tolerance? Don't support the Palestinian radicals.
No question about it. U.S. Senator Ted Budd joins us here this morning. Before we let you go this morning, Senator Budd, the clock is ticking for a government shutdown. It's obviously going to start in the House side. What are you hearing in the Senate? What's Chuck Schumer going to do?
Well, there was a good sign last night that he did not advance a shell bill, which would have allowed him to have taken the lead on this. And instead, he allows Mike Johnson to shift this. Hopefully, the Speaker will pass it today. They may do it through something called a suspension of the rules, which means instead of a majority of 218, they'll pass it with 290 votes. And if it does, it will kick over here and we'll be able to pass it. The great win here, first of all, I'm not a fan of CRs. I don't like minibuses. I don't like these omnibus spending packages. I like these regular order. But this gets us on the footing for regular order in late January and February, because that discussion ain't happening on Christmas Eve. And if they do a traditional 45-day CR, which is where we are now, and then a 30-day one, that puts you up to Christmas Eve, the conservatives lose all their spending leverage and people start voting for crazy amounts of spending just so they can get home. That's a bad idea. Let's get it into January, February, so that we can have a real negotiation. So that's the bright side of this CR. And again, in general, I'm not a fan of them, but I think the Speaker's doing the best he can with what he's got to get it into next year.
Nothing spreads Christmas cheer like out-of-control government spending. U.S. Senator Ted Budd joining us this morning. Senator Budd, constituent services are a huge thing up in Washington, D.C. How do folks get in touch with your office if they've got issues with a passport or a visa? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, find us on the web, bud.senate.gov. We have an office there in Wilmington. We would love to serve you. We've got a great team that loves to take care of anytime you're having interface with any government agency, if it's IRS, passports, whatever, or the VA and your benefits, if you're a veteran. So again, thank you. And we celebrated you over Veterans Day, but we'll continue to serve you in our office, bud.senate.gov.
U.S. Senator Ted Budd joining us this morning. Senator Budd, always appreciate your time and the conversation. We'll catch up with you next month.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.